Hi guys, this is Jim with Performance Technologies again, back for another installment of our 300ZX project. Today I'll be showing you how to remove and replace rod bolts from your existing rods. The first thing you're going to need is a vise or some kind of a secure clamping device that has soft jaws in it. The vise I'm using has a lead alloy. It's not as soft as normal wheel weight lead or something like that. It's got a lot of tin in it, I'm sure. So it's a harder lead than you'd normally find. But you want something that isn't going to scar up the rod while you go through this procedure. You want to clamp the side of the rod that you're going to pull the bolt from first. Then you're going to pull the cap off and screw on one of the old nuts so that you're not swelling the end of the factory rod bolt that you're going to be removing. If you are going to be applying some force to it, either whether you're going to tap it out all the way with a hammer or whether you're going to use a tool like an air hammer, like I'm about to. Just going to break it loose. Now you're not putting a lot of force into your swing while you're tapping this thing down. Now I'm going to use an air hammer and drive it the rest of the way out. It's less stress on the rod using an air hammer, but tapping it out with a hammer is just fine as long as you're not putting a lot of force into it. You know, you got to use your common sense. Use enough to get it driven out, but don't just wail on it. Always clamp the side that you're working with. Don't try to clamp the whole rod and do both sides. Just clamp one side of the saddle at a time, and clamp it up pretty close to the mating surface of the rod cap. Get it tight enough to where it holds. You don't want it sliding down on you. You really don't want the head of the piston on the tabletop or floor or whatever and driving the rod into it. Just tapping it down far enough to break loose all that oxidation and stuff that's built up over the years. Use the air hammer to drive it on out. It didn't quite come out. There we go. Simple as that. Using this method, you shouldn't ever have to worry about flaring the big end of the rod or anything like that by putting force into the wrong place. Putting the new bolts in, pretty easy. They aren't serrated, so they go in a lot easier than the factory rod bolts came out. You don't have to beat these things in. Don't take a hammer to them and try to pound them down in there or anything like that. You'll just you'll screw up the big end where the caps won't fit right, and you'll have to have them resized then at the machine shop. And we don't want to do that. So we're going to use a cheap press that's built into the rod, and that's called a rod nut. You put the rod nuts on and just tighten them down. They'll finish pulling the rod bolt through the rod end and snug them right on in. It's simple, fast, and easy. You'll feel it when they get tightened up, and you can watch them as they pull snug. The other end of the bolt that's down below the vise where you can't see it right now is kind of an egg shape bolt head. It's not a hex like a regular bolt. Once it gets tight, you're done. Now there can be a problem, and probably will be a problem. It's pretty common. After you get to this point and break the nuts loose again to take the rod nuts off, getting the cap back off can be kind of a challenge because they get tight. And I'll show you here in a bit an easy and effective way to get the caps off without hurting anything either. The whole point of this is that you've already checked your rods and they're round. You don't need to have them resized or anything like that. If that's the case, then this method is very, very effective. If they're out of round or have any problems, they need to go to the machine shop anyway. If the cap's too tight to pull off, and it probably will be, just tap it on the sides with a small hammer. Don't flail on it, just tap it. You'll see the separation lines open and the cap will slide off. It takes a while. Don't put a lot of force into it. You're just tapping on it. You're not beating the hell out of it. And you'll see the cap separate. Be sure it's on the sides and as flat as possible. Once they separate, you just put the nuts back on, the new nuts, so that you know where they are, and you're done. Do that for each rod and you're on your way. That's it for this one. Next up is putting the pistons and rod assemblies in the engine and getting the bottom end finished. Until then, have fun, drive safe, and we'll see you guys later.